Hey, this is Erin from CreativeEye Chalk again, and I am wearing a different outfit because in the morning I get up and I plan to weed before it gets too hot. Yeah, I could probably weed every day of the summer and not be done, but so I look like a mess because I thought I would weed and take a quick shower and then finish up this video, but I didn't get the project done outside that I was trying to get done, so I just look like a total mess. But it was important that I did this video because yesterday, this part of the video, I foolishly pressed the wrong button and didn't film it. So what I have is my practice board, and I'm going to show you the part that's missing, or that would have been missing. I'm going to insert it in the right part of the video, but the reason why I'm working on a practice board and not my other board is I finished the other one. I love the can, so I'm not willing to wipe it off and start over. But I thought it was important to show you this step. So I'm just taking this transfer. I already cleaned it off, just wiped it down again, so it's actually wet. You should never work with a wet transfer because the chalk paste will seep under it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's really just the technique I'm showing you. I'm not showing you a beautiful design at the end. So what I'm going to do is take my light gray that I told you yesterday I mixed up with white and black and water, so it's a little runnier, and that's not going to help my wet transfer either, but again, I'm just showing you the technique. Want to make sure it's recording. Okay, so all I care about is the outline. Okay, I don't care about anything on the inside. I don't even care if I don't have total coverage, because all I'm really doing right now is giving me a line that I'm going to paint inside that line when I do the next part. So and rather than fool with just the outside, I just do the whole handle. It's not that much chalk paste, and doing it this way, you're saving chalk paste, and I feel like you're saving a little bit of time to do it this way. All right, and this corner, I always try to make sure that I do get that corner in there because that's one of the places that I look when I'm matching it up. I also look at this corner and I try to do this corner. I never really care about the handle itself because, well, you'll see later in the video, I a lot of times will leave some extra chalk paste on the handle. So I don't even worry about how far off I am on that. And then up here in this corner, it's good to match it up there, but I don't even worry about that either. That's another area where sometimes I'll do more or less chalk paste, so I'm okay. So when you pull it up, all it looks like is that. So now at this point, I would start doing the buildup of dimension. Right into, these are lines. Okay, I saved my empty jars. So what I'm doing is just giving a base coat with chalk paste inside those lines. You don't even have to go all the way to the end because when you put the transfer down one final time, you're going to end up with the detail showing, not this part of the transfer. Okay, and I'm not even like fully covering everything. I'm just trying to get a layer of chalk paste on there. And when I did this the first time, I did a layer of gray. And that worked fine. And then when I did it again, I decided to try a lighter layer, and I just thought that it was easier to get the highlighting that I wanted off of that. Now, when I say, you know, you're just putting down a layer on this part and don't have to go to the edge, I also want to say, if you go outside of the line, it's okay, because remember, you can chip it off. So when you're doing this, a lot of times what I do over this part, the handle, is I don't even try to stay within those lines. I just follow it as close as I can, but I don't take the time to even get a smaller brush or be really careful on that part. All I'm doing is coloring with the chalk paste, and at the end I am going to take off whatever is left over. And I do that for two reasons. One is because it does not matter, because we can chip it off and clean it at the end. But the other thing is, when you have this light layer on there and you match up the transfer at the very end, what you're going to find is you're not going to match it up completely 100%. Now, you could take the time and get it to match up completely 100%, but what you end up with on the handle, I find, is you're off a little bit. That's perfectly okay, because it looks like highlighting. So some of it you're going to clean up, and some of it you'll probably decide to leave there. So I like to do this where I'm a little bit wider over there, so I can pick and choose. And you will totally decide on the look you want. The safest thing is to chip it off to be the original design, you know, to get those lines to match up. But I like to do everything a little bit different, and you know, I just think it makes my pieces look different from other pieces. And honestly, I can't even do two pieces that look the same if I try. It's kind of how I cook. I look at a recipe as a suggestion and not as a rule book. So I just love the variety of what I end up with in the end. And if I do something and I decide after I've done it, I don't like it, it didn't turn out anything like I was wanting, I just wipe it off and do it again. So I love playing around. I like watching how the paints interact and just figuring it all out. So to me, that's part of the fun of chalk art, is you do have the flexibility to play around with things. So this is the first layer. I'm going to let it dry for a little while, and then I'll be right back. All right, we are ready to start doing the next layer on this design, and you won't be using a transfer or even a squeegee. So what I have, and I could actually even use bigger brushes than what I have here, but now I'm going to start painting. And I just want to encourage you, if you are not a painter or an artist, do not worry about it. You can do this, it's so easy, and you just have to think about it, okay? And I even encourage you to, when you see some metal, even if it's a pole, you know, a light pole or something, if the sun is shining on it, just look at it. And what do you notice? You're going to notice it's darker around the edges usually, shiny in one spot. But anyway, you're going to start noticing how light interacts with things and how you can duplicate that in your pieces of chalk art. So what we're going to do is start painting. So we have this design, and we did a very light gray. I could have done white, I could have done gray. I just chose this light gray that I have. So I've done it with the darker gray background, and I've gone back and forth about it. Now what I do first is I take some of the chalk paste and I actually put it in a coffee can lid because as I'm using the brush, if I'm putting wet paint on top of the other chalk paste, I could possibly reactivate some of this paste, and I don't want to be putting my brush back in my jar. So I move the paste out of the jar onto another surface. And I don't think that I'll end up with extra chalk paste, but when I do, I have these little containers that I put in the extra, so I'm just never wasting the chalk paste. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can work from the outside in or the inside out. And what I decided was I like to decide where my light source is coming from, where it's hitting the can, and then leave that spot light rather than put the light and work out. The first time I did the light, moved into silver, moved into the gray. But what I like to do now is go ahead and start building into that section. You do it either way, and you'll just find the way that it works best for you. Now you do not always have to be working on a big surface like this. I have boards that I have cut down, and I use these as practice boards. So I might be practicing getting dimensions in flowers. I might be combining colors. But anyway, I use them as practice boards. And that's what I'd encourage anyone to do, is just practice with the different designs we have, combining transfers, and you'll start finding what techniques work for you, what you like to do. So anyway, let me also clarify, this is not Chalk Couture 101, okay? So if you're new, I wouldn't recommend doing this kind of thing right away. The beauty of Chalk Couture is it is so quick and simple, easy to make absolutely beautiful designs. And then when you want to get more complicated, or you feel more confident, that's when you move into this kind of thing. Some of you I know will, even on your first day, try something like this, and more power to you. But please don't be disappointed if it doesn't work out. Just keep trying again. Okay, so back to what we're doing. Now, what I like to do for a galvanized can is I don't paint straight. Like that bottom layer, I did straight lines all over the place. What I like to do for a galvanized can is to do a crisscross pattern, okay? And it's funny because in one way you will never see that crisscross pattern when this is hanging up on a wall, but if someone looks closely, they will notice that it's not just straight chalk paste or paint on the design. And one of the reasons is because when you do this crisscross, the light shines on your paint differently, So you are actually getting light from the room or the sun or whatever kind of light is hitting your design is hitting the paint differently. So now again, I don't have to go all the way to the edges because our transfer will do the edges, but I'll get close enough to them. Okay, so we are going to do this all over the can, the watering can, just getting our little chalk paste in there. Okay, and this is going to be where my light source is, right down the center there.
Oh, guess what? Then I walked into me. Was that orientation too?
Alright, so I'm not doing that center section because that's where my light source is going to be. But I am going to get some gray up here on the handle. And as you know, I'm not worried about the mess. Okay, just getting some of that galvanized metal look up there. Okay, so now I have gray on my light source. Okay, I just put a little bit of white on this lid. I'm really not worried about if it's too watery, which this would be too watery to chalk paste with, but it's fine for what I'm doing. And when I'm painting, I actually do like to make the chalk paste creamier, more liquidy, because I feel like it's more like painting. Chalk paste is thick and it's difficult to maneuver, okay? It's just the way it is. It doesn't make it better or worse than other kinds of paints, but just like acrylics work differently than oil paints or watercolor, chalk paste is a different medium, and you'll find that it's not like other kind of painting. So what I'm going to do now is say, okay, this is where the most of the light is hitting the can, is going to be this section. So I'm putting this truer white, because remember I have light gray down at the bottom. Okay, and I'm still doing that crisscross because I still do not want a nice smooth finish. Okay, and again, this is something where you'll decide how thick or thin you want that line. I've actually done this a couple different sizes and like it just the same. Now it's funny because you would think if the light's hitting like this, you would do this side of the handle, but what I like is actually this side of the handle to be a little lighter. I don't make it as light as my true light source, but I just feel like it's like a reflection off of this light is hitting the handle over here. And again, you play around with it, you decide where you like that to hit. So okay, so we can go back and forth again with our little X's, and really what I'm just trying to do is get texture in there. And then now we are going to move on to silver. The galvanized can has different spots of shine. So I really like our metallics paints for this. And what I do is I just play into that white. I'm blending the white in, I'm blending the white out. Okay? And it's another reason why I like to make the white paint wetter than usual is I don't want it to dry completely before I start putting on the next layer. So okay, so the last part I'm going to do is put some darker spots on there. Okay, so I'm just putting a little bit of black paste on my tray over here. I'm getting a little collection. So I have my tray of gray. And I'm going to move that squeegee. Okay. So I just put a little bit of the black paste over in the side, blending it in a little bit, but what I'm trying to do is have a little section of black that I can dip into every once in a while as I'm mixing in the gray. So I can go back and forth between dark and light. At this point, I don't even know that it matters which brush I use, but like I just dipped it in the black, dipping it in the gray. If you get too dark or too light and you put it on, you're just going to come over top of it with a darker color. Okay, so you know you'll find which, like that's kind of dark, so I'm going to come over that with a little bit of gray, maybe a little bit of white. I usually make the bottom of the can darker than the rest. I feel like that's probably the darkest part of the design. But at the same time, this part, most of it will end up being covered with the detail part of the transfer. let's see. So now I'm gonna take some gray because I think that's too dark, and I'm gonna try to lighten that up a little bit. Alright, and now I'm gonna come along this back side and do the same thing. Now, no one is going to look at this and try to figure out if you got all your directions of light correct. You know, if the light's hitting over here, maybe someone would say, oh, you know, light should actually be on this part of the can too. I don't think that that's going to happen. People have commented to me that they don't think they can do this because they're not artists. And I just want to say I am absolutely not an artist either. I'm actually an accountant, and I tend to be more analytical. So I think things through a lot rather than observe with my eyes. But I did go to school. I went back and forth between graphic arts and accounting. So I did learn a lot about design and principles of design, that kind of thing. But in terms of being an artist, I'm a wannabe artist. Let's put it that way. So, okay. So this one is darker than all the other cans that I've done. And I think I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. So let's see, we're going to take a little bit of this lighter gray that we started with. And I just want a lighter can because I think it'll pop a little more. So here we go, blending it in again. So I don't want it so light that it's competing with my light source, but okay, so at this part of your project, you are going to look at what you have and say, oh, I completely failed. It looks horrible. And I will show you what it looks like close up. Let's see how close we can get. Okay, at this point, you have the general idea, but we do not have the detail on it. And the other thing, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you. When this is hanging up, it looks completely different from when you're looking at it like that. When you're looking at it like that, all you see is streaks and a mixture of colors, and you think that you did not get the concept. But what I want to tell you is complete it. You're gonna let this completely dry. We're gonna put a coat of wax on it because we now have several layers of chalk paste on this. And when you put down the transfer again, it can very easily pull up the bottom layers, especially when you have several layers of chalk paste, because it's thicker and it's going to want to move with the adhesive. So what we do is we take our wax. We sell the little tubes of wax for $2. Very good for carrying around, doing workshops, small pieces. I love it. But then I also use Minwax finishing paste. This is what I use when I'm refinishing boards, or I make my own boards or buy a surface that isn't chalk couture. I'm often doing quite a few at the same time, so I just use this, and it's just wax. Basically, it's a soft wax. You rub it on, wipe it off, and I tend to let it sit for 24 hours before I wax on the surface that I'm going to be chalk painting on. Now, because we're going to be waxing over the chalk paste, I'm not going to wait 24 hours before I use it again, because I'm just doing over the design to protect the design. I'm not protecting the surface, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to let this dry and then come back and do the last phase. Okay, I decided that I am not going to wax this because my transfer is as close to dead as I would dare use it. It's still a little sticky, as you can see, but it is not sticky enough that it's going to pull up this chalk paste. So I'm going to use it as is and not worry about it pulling up the chalk paste underneath. I will be doing flowers probably in my next series of things, which involves layering and highlighting. And so when I do those videos, I'll go ahead and show you about waxing, but I'm not going to worry about it now. Now, because this transfer has been used so much, it's a little difficult to see through the screen to match it up exactly. Also, because I didn't try necessarily to stay in the lines, it's not going to match up exactly. I can see down here in this corner that I'm not exactly lined up, but believe it or not, you could be at least 1/4 of an inch off, maybe even a little more, and it's not gonna matter. It just means that you will have a larger area of the detail. What I like on this when I'm working on a black board is I would not use black as the highlighting. I sometimes will use this midnight blue, but even that doesn't pop enough. So the combination that I like is Midnight Blue with Liberty. I think that the Liberty brightens it up a little without changing the color all that much. I like the dark, it's a little subtle, but still I want people to be able to see it. And Liberty is one of those colors that I just love. I love how it brings life to a lot of our designs. So you'll see in a lot of our videos there's colors I absolutely love and I use all the time, like Peacock is one of my favorites, and Wild Berry. So okay, so you can see that it's lighter than the Midnight, but the other thing, a lot of times I don't completely blend them. If I have some Liberty and some of the navy separate, that's totally fine for me. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to put a little bit more Liberty on there just so I can get some separate from the Midnight Blue. I do like it when things have streaks of other colors in it, so I'm going to put both of those colors on there and mix it up a little, but keep some of the blue separate. The Liberty, I should say, separate. Okay, so now you're just going to start putting this on, and you know, wherever you have lines, which is basically the whole can, and hopefully I put enough chalk paste on this coffee can lid. You can see I'm a real professional with my supplies, but there's no sense in spending money where you don't have to spend money, because there's plenty of things to buy which are beautiful that are worth the money. So you know, I'd rather spend the money on more chalk paste and ink rather than spend it on nice little containers and stuff. Okay, so what I'm doing is just trying to get all those little lines that are in the transfer, because those are the detail. Because if you did not have those little lines, the can would still kind of look flat. You know, that's what we're trying to do, make it look more lifelike and real, add some dimension. So, okay. I think I got all those areas. Now the last watering can video that I expect to do is on my window treatments. So it'll be on fabric. Okay, there's a spot right there that I didn't get. So I just laid the transfer right back down. I have a little more. Okay. All right. So now I need to get that in the water pretty quickly. But now the next part will be, I will wait until that blue dries, and then I'm going to start coming in once it's dry and taking off the excess. I might take off the excess up to the blue line. I might decide to leave some of the gray on the outside. Usually that part I just start working on it and make my decisions as I'm going along. You'll start to decide how much you want to get rid of and what you don't. But I will work on that as soon as it starts drying, and I'll come back on. Okay, so now for cleanup. I've let it dry about 5 minutes. So my favorite tool for cleanup is a toothpick. Sometimes I use a Q-tip. Sometimes I'll even use the stir stick. Sometimes I will brush a little bit of water if something's being stubborn to come off. So I have all my little tools available, but I'll just come in and start scraping it off. And that's what I love, love, love about the chalk paste, is it's so easy. Now, in this case, I did it on purpose, went out of the lines, but when you're using the transfer and the paste, if something doesn't match up exactly, it is just so easy to clean up and do it again. I personally think the most difficult part about working with the chalk paste is you look at your design like this and you get overly critical. You want to clean up every single spot you see. And what I would say to that is, don't do that. What happens is we start overcorrecting things when, if you really just took a step back, even 2 or 3 feet, and you looked at your design, you would notice that most of those things that you thought were mistakes look perfectly fine. They don't affect your picture at all. They might even add character. So what I suggest to people is, when they see things to correct, take the picture, stand it up, and step several feet back and look at it, because you will probably see that things are perfectly fine. Okay, so this area here, where I have some of the white and gray outside of the blue, for me looking at that, I think that that's going to be an area where I leave it like that. I like the highlighting on that side of the can, even outside the blue. Now, for some people, that would absolutely drive them crazy. They would feel like that's like coloring outside the lines. So those people, if they were doing the same can, I would expect for them to come in and clean that all off right up to the blue. I just happen to like it this way. So, I'm undecided about that white up there. I will look at it at the end and decide if I need to dab on some blue or if I like the white. So I'm actually going to leave that for now. Get rid of some of, for some reason I have, oh, I was going to say, some reason I have a little green up there, but that's because I did that funky colored layer underneath. So I have a little bit of green. I'll set it up, lean it up against a wall, and have you guys decide if you like what you see. If you think you can do it, I would love, love, love for you guys to try this. You don't even have to use the same technique, but go ahead and try something similar, play around, and then comment back. Tell me what you tried, what you did differently, what worked for you. I would love to improve the technique. I think the first one I did the white streak first and then worked out. This time you saw that I worked in. So, you know, there's different ways that you can achieve this look. But remember, usually darker is at your outside, at the bottom. It's a curved image, so you're coming in. So just think of that, dark to light, dark to light. Now this is not completely on the center because I have the light coming in on an angle. I mean, we could have had the light coming in over here, but you're trying to make it look roundish. So this is just one of the techniques I use. Hopefully on other videos I'll be showing you other tricks and things that I have done. So excuse all the streaks on here, but I don't want to clean it up completely until the paste has dried for at least 10 hours. Because then, even if I wet this cloth a little bit and go over it, I'm still okay. I don't have to worry about any of it because the paste is dry enough. So I'm just going to give it a little bit. I'm still deciding on that colorful underlayer that every once in a while those colors are showing through. And I have to decide, but to be honest with you, I think I'm going to leave them.